The afternoon light streamed through the living room windows as Sophie arranged blocks with 3-year-old Mia and 5-year-old Grace, both wearing matching pink dresses and chattering about their favorite cartoons. At 25, Sophie had been working as their nanny for 2 months, finding unexpected joy in caring for these spirited twin daughters of Michael Carter, a software engineer who was doing his best to balance single parenthood with a demanding career. Sophie wore simple jeans and a comfortable sweater, her long hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She had carefully crafted her resume to highlight her early childhood education coursework, while omitting the fact that she was Sophia Blackstone, heir to the Blackstone media empire. Her father owned television networks, publishing companies, and digital platforms across 3 continents, but Sophie had grown tired of the superficial relationships and constant scrutiny that came with extreme wealth. "Miss Sophie, can we paint pictures after snack time?" Grace asked, bouncing on her toes with excitement. "Of course, sweetheart. What would you like to paint?" "A butterfly. A big purple one with sparkles." Sophie smiled at the child's enthusiasm. Working with Michael's daughters had taught her more about authentic happiness than years of exclusive parties and luxury vacations ever had. These girls valued her attention and creativity, not her trust fund or social connections. Michael appeared in the doorway, still wearing his work clothes but looking more relaxed than when he had left that morning. His casual khakis and white shirt suggested someone who prioritized comfort over fashion, a refreshing change from the calculated appearances Sophie was accustomed to in her father's business circles. "How were my girls today?" Michael asked, though his smile suggested he already knew the answer from the sounds of laughter he had heard while approaching the house. "They were wonderful. We built a fort, practiced counting, and Grace read an entire book to Mia." "I did, Daddy. I read about the rabbit who lost his mittens." Michael's expression softened as he listened to Grace's excited retelling of their day. Sophie had observed over the weeks that he genuinely treasured these moments with his daughters, never treating their stories as interruptions to more important adult concerns. "Sophie, would you mind staying a few extra minutes tonight? I need to finish a project presentation and it would help if the girls had dinner before I'm free to take over." "Of course. We were planning to make spaghetti anyway, weren't we, girls?" As Michael retreated to his home office, Sophie reflected on how different this felt from the household she had grown up around, where children were managed by staff and parents appeared mainly for formal dinners or photo opportunities. Michael was present and engaged, asking detailed questions about his daughter's day and genuinely listening to their responses. Later that evening, after the twins were in bed, Sophie and Michael found themselves talking over tea in the kitchen. These conversations had become a routine she looked forward to, offering insights into a kind of life she had never experienced. "Sophie, can I ask you something?" Michael said, studying her face with curious eyes. "Sure. You seem to have a natural gift with children, and your knowledge about child development is impressive. Have you considered making this a long-term career?" Sophie felt the familiar tension between honesty and maintaining her carefully constructed identity. "I love working with children. It's the most fulfilling work I've ever done. But I sense there's something you're not saying." Sophie chose her words carefully. "My family has different expectations for my future. They expect me to work in the family business rather than pursue what makes me happy." "What kind of family business?" "Media and communications. Very traditional, very corporate. Not really my style." Michael nodded with understanding. "Family pressure can be overwhelming, but at some point you have to decide whether you're living your life or someone else's." Sophie felt touched by his insight, though he couldn't know how accurately he had described her situation. "What about you? Have you always wanted to be a software engineer?" "Actually, no. I wanted to be a teacher. But when the girls were born, I needed a career that could provide financial security. Sometimes we make compromises for the people we love." "Do you regret the choice?" "Not when I see how it's allowed me to give Grace and Mia opportunities I never had. But I do miss the idea of shaping young minds in a classroom." Their conversation was interrupted by Grace appearing at the top of the stairs, clutching her stuffed elephant and looking sleepy. "Miss Sophie, can you read one more story?" "Of course, sweetie. Let's get you back to bed." As Sophie tucked Grace back under her covers and read another chapter of their bedtime story, she realized how much these simple moments meant to her. The corporate boardrooms and charity galas of her father's world suddenly seemed shallow, compared to the genuine affection of children who valued her time and attention. 3 weeks later, Sophie's carefully maintained anonymity came to an abrupt end when a photographer spotted her leaving Michael's house and recognized her despite her casual appearance. The resulting tabloid story, complete with speculation about the Blackstone heiress working as hired help, created exactly the kind of media attention Sophie had been trying to avoid. Michael confronted her the next morning, holding a newspaper with her photograph prominently displayed on the front page. Sophie Blackstone, daughter of media mogul Richard Blackstone, net worth estimated in the hundreds of millions. He looked up from the paper with a mixture of hurt and confusion. "Were you planning to tell me who you really are?" Sophie felt her heart sink as she realized her secret was exposed. "Michael, I can explain. Please do. Because I'm having trouble understanding why someone with your background would want to work as a nanny for a struggling single father." Grace and Mia watched from the living room, sensing tension but not understanding its source. Sophie knew that her response would determine not just her relationship with Michael, but her connection to the children she had grown to love. "I took this job because I wanted to experience what it felt like to be valued for who I am, rather than what my family owns. Working with Grace and Mia has been the most genuine relationship I've ever had." So this was an experiment? A way for a rich girl to play at being normal? The hurt in Michael's voice made Sophie realize how her deception had affected his trust. It started that way, but it became something much more important. "These past months have shown me what kind of life I actually want to build." "And what kind of life is that?" "One where I use my advantages to help families like yours, where I can make a difference in children's lives without the complications of wealth and social expectations." Michael studied her face, trying to reconcile the Sophie he had known with the heiress described in the newspaper. "Why should I believe that? You've been lying to me for months." "Because I'm asking my father to set up a foundation focused on supporting single parents. Because I want to use my inheritance to create opportunities for families who are struggling. And because I've never cared about anything as much as I care about Grace and Mia's happiness." Grace approached them tentatively, holding her elephant and looking concerned about the serious adult conversation. "Miss Sophie, are you going away?" Sophie knelt down to Grace's level, her eyes filled with tears she had been holding back. "I don't want to go away, sweetheart. But that depends on whether your daddy still wants me to be part of your family." Michael watched this interaction, seeing the genuine love between Sophie and his daughters. Despite his hurt over her deception, he couldn't deny the positive impact she had made on their lives. "Sophie, I need time to process this. The fact that you're wealthy doesn't bother me, but the lies do." "I understand. I just hope you'll give me the chance to prove that my feelings for you and the girls are completely real." 6 months later, Sophie stood in the newly opened Blackstone Family Resource Center, watching Michael lead a workshop for single parents on balancing work and childcare responsibilities. Her foundation had hired him as Director of Family Services, allowing him to return to his passion for education while providing support for families facing similar challenges to his own. Grace and Mia played in the center's childcare area, surrounded by other children whose parents were participating in job training programs, financial literacy classes, and support groups designed to strengthen family stability. "Sophie," Michael said as they watched their daughters make new friends, "can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you ever regret giving up the luxury lifestyle to work with families like ours?" Sophie smiled, thinking about the authentic relationships and meaningful work that had replaced empty social obligations. "Michael, I didn't give up anything valuable. I traded a life of privilege for a life of purpose, and I found a family that loves me for who I am rather than what I can buy. The girls adore you, and I've come to understand that your deception came from wanting to be accepted rather than wanting to deceive." Sophie realized that revealing her true identity had ultimately strengthened their relationship by forcing her to be completely honest about her values and motivations. The man who had initially hired her as help had become her partner in creating meaningful change for families who needed support. If this story of finding authentic purpose through service to others inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales that remind us how true fulfillment comes from using our advantages to lift others up rather than simply enjoying them ourselves. Your support helps us continue sharing stories about the power of genuine connection and meaningful work.